What ho chaps, how the devil? It's me, your angry chum, ready for action. And we have to talk about voter ID laws today, don't we? We just have to do it. Because, as you are probably aware, Twitter has been awash with arseholes talking about voter ID. Like it's a fucking difficult thing to get an ID in the UK. Femi, are we sure he works for George Soros? I'm sure he works for Boris Johnson. He must do, because everything that human sausage types makes the Conservatives look good. He really has got the charm and charisma of a fucking flip-flop. The man knows nothing. I'm convinced he's working for Boris, or Cameron, or someone. Some arch-Tory. Boris Johnson voted against ID cards 12 times, but wants to restrict voting to people with photo ID. That's how you know his policy is about voter suppression against marginalised groups. Listen, Femi, listen. He voted against ID cards because the British public does not and never has supported ID cards. This was well known when Yes Minister was on in the fucking 80s. Every time anyone mentioned ID cards, they knew the British public would freak out because we don't want mandatory ID cards, but we do want to know that people aren't cheating in elections. And that is all this is about. The left want to cheat in elections. They spew this American claptrap out, talking about a country that's 2,000 miles across and sparsely populated. And there really are some people, a tiny minority compared to what the left would have you believe, but there are some places in America, I've been to them, where they really are in the middle of nowhere. But fuck Alabama, 500 miles away from anywhere even approaching a metropolitan area. So there are some people who possibly couldn't get an ID in the United States. Not in fucking England. Not in a country that entirely fits inside half of California. It doesn't exist. And the government have already said that any policy that involves voter ID, they will give out free ID to anybody that asks for it. Everyone that wants one gets one. So what possible reason is there for the likes of Femi to bring up this bollocks argument, if not to cheat? It is transparently obvious. A blind man could see it. Mr. Magoo would drive into it. It is transparently obvious. They want to stop voter ID laws because they want to cheat. And that's why when you type in voter ID on Google, who's complaining about this? Are the general public concerned about voter ID laws? No, the general public saw what happened after Brexit and in America, and they want to make sure, clever people that they are, that we don't have the same issues in the UK. That's why when you type in voter ID on Google, you get this, the usual suspects. The Guardian, The Independent and Sky News are the big top stories about voter ID. You know why? Because these three are about as impartial as a particularly clingy mother at a baby beauty contest. Yeah, with a horrific fat ginger baby. They don't want the truth. They can't handle the truth. They don't want the judge to come over and go, fucking hell, that ginger monstrosity would look more handsome if you put it through a car windscreen and stitched its face back together before you brought it in. Keep it away from me, it is barely human. They don't want to hear that. They want to be lied to. They want the sweetness of a good lie. The Guardian, The Independent, Sky News. Fucking obvious, isn't it? And the piece is drivel. Mandatory voter ID would dangerously undermine democracy. It doesn't even make sense on the face of it. Common sense demands that this is horse shit. How does requiring ID dangerously undermine democracy? How? How does making sure that every vote is legitimate undermine democracy? How? You have to have the IQ of Diane Abbott's shoe to believe this fucking nonsense. Inclusive, lock out. How will it lock them out when in England nobody lives more than 2 or 3 miles away from a fucking voting centre? Nobody. And every single person can get a free ID if they ask for it. Everyone. Everyone. Your argument is shit. I'm not going to even cover the piece. I will leave it for your perusal if you are a sadomasochist and you want to lower yourself onto a cactus whilst reading this fucking drivel. Okay? It's bollocks. You know it's bollocks I know it's bollocks, and the people that read The Guardian, The Independent and Sky News know it's bollocks. They want to cheat because they can't win. That's why the SNP make it easy for anyone to vote. Convicts, foreigners, students, the random Chinese bloke who's just nipped over for his shopping trip in Edinburgh. They don't care who votes because they know cheating helps them. Why is it controversial? It's not controversial. Disenfranchised people from ethnic minority, blah, blah, blah. I'm working class. Well, I'm working class. I'll stop you there. I'm working class, and let me tell you what I think. I think if you can't get a driving licence, a passport, a fucking utility bill, or a free ID that the government said they will give free to everyone that wants one, if you can't do any of that, you don't have the IQ to vote. You are so irrevocably dense that I don't think you should be allowed to vote, you fucking idiot. And unlike the racist lefties, I think it's got absolutely nothing to do with colour. Oh my God. Colour? What do you mean ethnic? Are you saying they're too dense to get a fucking piece of ID that's free? What do you think? They can't fill the forms in? Oh my fucking God. There he is, the usual suspect, Owen Jones. Racist Owen Jones. Owen, honestly, you could only be more racist if you said, what we need to do is, we need to lay out a nice line of Zinger Tower burgers all the way to the polling stations. Then the ethnic minorities will vote. Yes. No, Owen, you racist bastard. You middle-class arsehole. You might have a low opinion of the ethnic and working classes, but I don't. I think they are sensible enough to fill out a fucking short form and get a piece of free ID sent to their house. The soft bigotry of low expectations, gentlemen. I give you exhibit fucking A. My God. Let me know what you think. It's lunacy. Anyone with the ability to read knows it. And Owen Jones and the usual suspects are transparently, obviously, cheating commie bastards. See, if you believe that sentence, definitely knowing who's voting and where and for whom, if you believe that sentence, mandatory ID dangerously undermines democracy, you really are a human goldfish, as thick as mince. And unlike Owen, I don't think it's linked to working class or ethnic minorities. I think it's linked to cheating middle-class communists and nothing else. Thanks for watching. See you all very soon. Cheers.